Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loki here. Join me today as we work in my shade garden. So let's go. It has been super hot, very humid here in New Hampshire. I'm sure you know what I mean. So I figured it's a great day to bring you down in one of my many areas of my yard that I call shade gardens because much of my yard is shade. But there's one specific area where I like to tuck in a lot of different plants, and I want to bring you down there and show you what I'm talking about. In case you missed it, I did make a garden tour video recently, and I like to include all the plant names. I'll put a link to that video down in the description because today's video, we're not going to specifically go over all the different plants that you see in my shade garden. We're just going to focus on the task at hand, which includes moving and dividing plants around and also cutting back some plants. I love this little area of my yard. And I often call it my shade garden because you can see it is very shady here. In fact, it stays this way all day long. There's a lot of work to be done in here. So we're going to go plant by plant and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And the goal for today's video is to show you a small piece of what I'm doing. And then I'll tackle that one piece just to get it done. And then we'll pick another project or another task to do in this area. I'll show you how I do it, and then I'll just get that task done. So let's get started. The first plant is Bloodroot. Bloodroot is a wonderful woodland plant. It's one of the first perennials that blooms in my yard that's not a bulb. It has a gorgeous white flower to it. And after the flower goes by, which the flower only lasts maybe a week, if that, the leaves end up basically getting taller and taller. They add a lot of interest to the garden. And even though they are adding interest in this space right now, it's time for me to just come in here and cut it back to the ground. The energy has been stored for next year, and we'll see it again come next spring. I really do love this area of my yard. I feel like there's just so much opportunity. There's so much fun that you can do in a shade garden. This beautiful little plant right here, this is a type of goat's beard, and it's a dwarf goat's beard, which is why I have it tucked in towards the front of this flower bed. Even though it has slight bloom still on it, I want to just come in and go ahead and deadhead it. It put on a beautiful display a few weeks ago, but now is the time to come in and just do some maintenance. The main piece of maintenance is just deadheading it so that the foliage, which are little lacy type leaves, just look beautiful. To deadhead or prune the dwarf goat's beard, I'm just following each flower stalk down and using hand pruners and snipping them off. Even though these few here still have a little bit of white color on them, the rest of the plants that I have don't have any more color. So it makes sense at this time to come in here and just clean it up a little. I want you to see how pretty it looks to have this color of mini or small hosta next to the foliage of the dwarf goat's beard. I think it looks so pretty. If I wanted to collect the seeds from this plant, I would keep the blooms on there and let the plant go to seed. But since I have a lot of this plant in my landscape, I'm planning on coming in here and dividing this because I want to add this towards the front of other areas in my yard. After I'm all done deadheading the remaining dwarf goat's beard plants, I'll show you what's next. I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with hosta. I received a small piece of this hosta from my late mother-in-law's garden. And over the years, I've just been dividing this plant around. So I now have a ton of this plant. You can see it's a very small size hosta. And I'm going to put on the screen what I think the name of the hosta could be. If you look right back there, tucked in are more of the hosta. And I've played around with different areas of putting this particular hosta in this garden space. And I've looked at it and I've thought about it. You can see I have it pretty much in so many different areas. I have some tucked in over here and I have some tucked in over there. The bottom line is the size of the hosta is small. It should definitely not be tucked in towards the back of this garden space. It should be towards the front. And because it has a nice chartreuse color to it, I think it complements and looks really nice next to the foliage of the dwarf goat's beard. For that reason, I've decided that I want to move this hosta because, again, I have a lot of it to play with since I've divided it over the years. It's going to get moved towards the front, and we're basically going to place it in between each patch of the dwarf goat's beard. I mean, I think it kind of makes sense to do that, right? We might as well. So we're going to do one small section together, and I'll show you my process for doing that. It's a necessary evil. Before we can go ahead and bring the hosta in this area, we just need to clean up the space. So I'm just using this small hand rake here, and I'm raking up any sort of twigs, like this one here, any sort of leaves. Because this area is located under the trees, it's inevitable that you're going to end up getting all sorts of little sticks and leaves. And then we can go ahead and remove any of the weeds. And when I say weeds, I know that there are some plants in here that I would love. I would love to be able to dig up and pot up. I see Labrador violet. There's also some feverfew in here. But there is a certain point when we're doing our garden projects that we have to decide, is it worth it? And at this point, I've been wanting to tackle this project for a long time this year. Since it's a hot day, it's a great time to be in the shade. Although, I have to be honest, the mosquitoes are eating me up alive. But that's okay, because sometimes we just have to do what we have to do. The ground is nice and wet, which makes it easy to be able to pull these weeds. We have this flower bed set up on drip irrigation. And I'm trying my best to get the weeds by their roots. If we're going to go through the effort, let's go through the effort and do it right. I'll eventually be coming in here and adding a nice layer of mulch. And I may possibly add some annuals in here. I still have some impatiens that I started from seed that need to get in the ground. And I also have some wax begonias that I started from seed that also need to get in the ground. But that can be done on a different day. And that all comes back to, again, what is the scope of today's project? And I'd rather just keep it manageable so that it's doable and makes me want to start and finish this project. Because just like a lot of our garden beds, we could pick 15, 20 things that need to be done in a space. But I would rather just pick a few things that I think we can do within a given amount of time. And I want to start it and finish it. And I know there are weeds well beyond this area going in that direction, and that direction, and that direction. We're just going to focus on this little piece right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just rough up the area for the simple reason that it just makes it look better. Of course, but when I'm doing this, I might be introducing more weed seeds, but that's fine. That just gives us something to do on a different day, more weeding. And I do need to come in and edge this area as well, but again, that's not part of today's scope. We're just going to focus on what needs to be done here. And now I'm just going to use the hand shovel to dig these up. I have quite a few mini and small hosta in my yard. So I'm playing around with the idea of moving them around and putting them towards the front of my shade garden beds like we're going to do today. Because why not? Then these little guys can stand out. They don't get hidden. And as I'm digging these out, if I find any other weeds, I can tackle those. I would have to say, of all the hosta I have in my yard, this is probably one of my favorite. And I wish I could tell you why. I mean, if I had to say why, I would say it's probably because of its color, but also because of its size. I think both things together just make it such a neat plant. And I figure while I'm doing this job, again, I'm checking around to see if there's any weeds, and now's the time to pull them. Since I have a lot of this hosta, because I've divided it over the years, I am going for impact towards the front of this bed. And we will be, if we can, we will be dividing any pieces down. And the reason is, I really want to increase my stock of this plant as well as many plants in my yard. So if we're going to go through the effort of digging them up, we might as well divide them at the same time. So the goal is really to pack in this area right here with the intent that maybe I can put some annuals behind it. So in a situation like this, there's basically, this is one plant, but you can see it if there's a potential of two. So if I try to remove some of the dirt here, I can look at the bottom of it and I can take my hand pruners. And as long as each section has roots on it, it's fine. So I'm just going to cut right in the middle. And clearly this guy got more of the roots, but this one still has roots on it. You don't have to divide them if you don't want, but I'm choosing to do that today. And now we're just going to go ahead and start placing them. If your soil is dry, then you want to make sure that you're putting water either in the planting hole or watering your plants well afterwards. But again, since we have drip irrigation set up in this bed, the soil is nice and wet, and it will get irrigation to it again tomorrow morning. So I figure we'll just make a nice line of them here, and then after that, we'll add more around each piece. I am planning on coming in and dividing the goat's beard on a different day, but we're not going to worry about that for today. On those really hot days, if you're experiencing them as well, working in the shade can be so nice. You can still be out in your garden, but you at least aren't in the blazing sun. And I'm not even counting how many hosta I'm tucking into this area. I'm looking for impact. I want it to look nice. So we're just going to pack them in. And so we basically have started with one row right here. Now we're going to go ahead and just tuck in some more. So in between each plant, like we have two here, I'll tuck one towards the center, but in the front. We have two here, I'll tuck one again in between two of those, but a little bit more towards the front. Just to stagger them a little. And what will happen is, within the next 1 to 2 years, each one of these plants will become double or triple in size. And that's how you can really increase your stock in plants, especially hosta. These guys are tiny, so I am not going to divide them. They're so small. Small but mighty, that's what I like to say. I'm just shopping my yard, and I just found a random one placed somewhere else in the garden where I didn't want it. I'm just going to come over here and snag one from this section. So in essence, we are cleaning up my flower bed by pulling them out of areas where we don't want this plant. And then we're putting it in an area where we do want it to make a nice big impact. So it's basically a 2-for-1 the way I look at it. This is something that I've been thinking about for at least a year now, doing this project of moving all these hosta towards the front. And I'm excited to finally execute it because I just think it needed to be done. And I think I'm going to put one more right here. I always like to step back and look at a space and survey it and see, is there anything that I can change, anything else I can add? And tuck it in right there. Oh my goodness, I am loving that. I think that looks so good. And I'm going to show you now, just so you see it. So tucked back over there, we have a whole bunch of the small hosta. You can hardly even see them. They're hidden. I'm not sure what I was thinking when I put them there, but that doesn't matter. So you can imagine we'll be copying this pattern in between each of these dwarf goat's beard. And we will be shopping all of the ones that you see here. There are plenty. So in essence, we're cleaning up this garden space by taking them from areas where they really shouldn't be and moving them to areas where they can really shine. I mean, look at all of those back there. We have plenty to work with here. So let me fight with the mosquitoes and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. And if I run out for whatever reason, I even have more towards the back there. And this is what it looks like before I get started. As I was working on this little garden space, I was thinking to myself, as I often do when I work in the garden, and I was thinking how fortunate I was to grab little pieces, little nuggets of my late mother-in-law's garden. And that was in 2018. It's now 2025, and I've been able to divide plants that I got from her yard and just keep moving them around. Even if they're not in their forever homes, it's okay. I have them in my garden to use. And I was thinking to myself, well, what if you're not that lucky that you don't have an area where you can take from? I encourage you to look at your own garden and look at plants that you have and plants that you can divide and move around your yard. Because when you do that, you can really create some beautiful things. I absolutely love how this looks. And there's just a small little change that we made that I feel really just makes an impact in this garden space. And when it comes to this space, there are so many more things I want to do in here. But there's always tomorrow. Today's project is complete. We got a lot done. We cut back all of the bloodroot. We divided every single piece of this mini hosta. And just imagine, each piece of hosta will create more sections of hosta that at a different time, different year, I can come in here and I can shop my yard and add this to other spaces. We also cut back or pruned back the dwarf goat's beard, just so it looks a lot tidier. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you in this space and make it even more beautiful. The space that we worked on is right down there. And I got looking at this space right over here towards the front of this flower bed. And I thought to myself, how pretty would it look to have just that same hosta towards the front of this area. And the good news is, friends, I still have plenty of this hosta left. You can see I have a little section over here. There's even more tucked in over here. And then I even have more of the same kind of hosta towards the front of my hosta garden, down that way. So perhaps on a different day we'll come out here and we'll finish this project. Although, is any project ever complete? That's what gardening is. We're always just working towards our end goal, which really there is no end goal, I feel. It's just, we just keep on moving, I think, when it comes to gardening, and that's what makes it so much fun. I want to thank you for joining me on this gardening journey, and I hope you'll join me again as we continue to work in this shade garden. If you don't have a shade garden, that's okay. Maybe you have a full sun garden or a part sun garden, but you can still take what you saw today and apply it in your own space. It can be a big space, it can be a very small space, but hopefully you learned something new in this video. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.